Hello, and welcome to Community Voices, where we talk to Humboldt County's movers and shakers. Today's guest, Jeff Pimentel, Caltrans District 1. And now here's your host, Paul Bressoud.
Hello and welcome to Access Humboldt's Community Voices. My name is Paul Bressoud, I'm your host, and today I'm here with Jeff Pimentel, the project manager from Caltrans. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you. Jeff, I always start out the interviews by asking, you're the project manager from Caltrans, asking people what is their job? What is inside their title of their job?
Yeah, so I'm a project manager, as you mentioned, for Caltrans here in District 1, which is headquartered in Eureka. Caltrans as a whole has 12 districts statewide. We are one of those districts covering Humboldt, Del Norte, Lake, and Mendocino counties. So essentially, Caltrans as a department designs, constructs, maintains, and operates all of the highways, freeways within those four counties. Approximately, I believe, 2,400 lane miles of roadway, and kind of tied into the department's mission, which is to provide a safe and reliable transportation network for all people that also respects the environment. My role as a project manager, in a nutshell, is essentially to manage the cost, scope, and schedule of a project. So those are kind of what are the three pillars of a project: our costs, our schedule in terms of delivery, all aspects of delivery in terms of from preliminary engineering to completing an environmental document to completing a design, and then ultimately getting the project delivered and into construction. And then also the scope. So the scope of a project is heavily tied into what we call the need and purpose of a project. Every single project establishes a very specific need and purpose, which drives the scope of improvements that are proposed for a project. And so, a goal of a project manager is to ensure that we deliver that project within the definition of that need and purpose, and kind of try to control that to be sure that it stays within those boundaries. And not that can't shift, but just balancing all three of those pillars of a project.
Before we talk about that, something that you mentioned about District 1 itself, those are some pretty diverse and pretty difficult counties, I would think, to maintain roads in, especially with the winter we just had.
Correct.
I mean, so you're looking at projects all the time, and yet it would seem that District 1, Region 1, is one of the more difficult as far as weather and damage. How do you balance projects that you have on the table with immediate needs that are caused by, nature?
Yeah, I would say I would just put that on the amazing staff that we have at Caltrans, because when we have an emergency and there might be an emergency order, director's order to go and take care of some work that needs to happen now because a facility may just be shut down and we can't wait for the normal project development life cycle to take care of that. Honestly, we're not staffing up to go deal with those issues. It is just part of the life cycle of our work on a yearly basis. So staff really digs deep and manages the workload that we have, the existing projects and the portfolio of projects that we have, and also goes and delivers the needs as they pop up, and such as emergency situations based on storm damage and whatnot. We do have staff dedicated to storm damage and emergency repairs, so that assists in that way, but the department as a whole really does a fabulous job of picking up that slack and just making it all work.
What about something that is as dramatic as a slide that may take out a road, like we have down on the way to Honeydew right now, or we have on the way to Crescent City right now? Do those larger kind of, I guess, catastrophes, for lack of a better word, put other projects on the back burner?
I mean, I don't know, I would say back burner, but everything has a priority, right? Especially when our resources, staff are limited, and we have who we have to prioritize our work. And so, priority number one for the department is safety. That's at the forefront of everything we do is safety. We want everyone to get home, get to their destination safely, for whatever reason they may be traveling. So safety is number one. Keeping our facility open, resilient, and in a safe operation is at the core of what we do. So, when a slide occurs and takes out a roadway or is impeding travel, that is going to become a priority. But like I said, somehow our amazing staff is still able to deliver on all of our other projects. And sometimes that means there could be a period of time where we're maybe not making as much headway on a certain project because there's another priority that has popped up. But what I've seen time and time again in the department across all the staff we have, which are just amazing, is we make up that time and in terms of still meeting milestones that we need to deliver. Because the way our department is kind of structured is it's very performance-based. So each year we actually as a department agree to certain what we call measured milestones, big milestones for a project, like completing an environmental document, completing your design work, completing construction. And we establish dates that the district commits to statewide that we're going to deliver on, target dates that we'll deliver. So we still maintain those targets and use a lot of different strategies to potentially make up for times when maybe other priorities had to take place, whether that's overtime, innovative strategies on how we can deliver things, more coordination. A lot of different ways, but I'm always amazed that we're able to continue to deliver our projects despite the things that pop up that surprise us that we'd rather not happen.
That are going to pop up every year.
Right.
Do you have a specific area or specific projects that you're currently working on?
Yeah, so of all the project managers that we have, for the most part, each project manager has a region of that they manage projects within. My region, I would say 80 to 90% of my projects fall within the Arcata and Eureka greater area. So some of the larger, more notable projects that the community might be aware of would be the Indianola Undercrossing and Half Signal project.
Now hang on.
Okay.
Is there really going to be an undercrossing? Is it really going to be an overpass? I can't even fathom this in my brain right now.
Yeah, so do you want to hit that for a moment?
Yeah, I want to see it.
So
I didn't want to leave here today and not know what it's going to look like.
Well, I'll see if I can't bring some clarity to that for you. So with the Indianola Undercrossing project, and undercrossing, the word is an important word to understand because when you're looking at Caltrans projects, we have various terms such as overhead, undercrossing, overcrossing, and they all mean a different thing. And I think the easiest way, at least for me, when I first learned what undercrossing meant, was we always talk about that with respect to what the local street does with respect to the highway. So if you think about undercrossing, that's saying that the local street will go under the highway. It's always respect to the highway. So if you can imagine with Indianola will go under 101. So as you're traveling, say from here in the studio where we're at College of the Redwoods, traveling north to, say, McKinleyville, when you're on 101 approaching that intersection, which now is what we call at grade, meaning everyone's on the same plane trying to make those movements, you will go up and over Indianola Cutoff. And there will be ramps at all four quadrants of that intersection where you will merge off. If you're going northbound, merge off to get onto Indianola, or if you're coming westbound on Indianola and you want to end up going north, you'll take that ramp to merge on. And there are ramps on that east side today that you utilize to get on and off the highway. There will be new ramps as well on the west side to facilitate those movements as well, so that we can get a grade separation between those vehicles. And the biggest benefit of that is that we will no longer have vehicles trying to cross the highway at Indianola while having to make a decision on is now the right time to go when vehicles are coming.
So you're going to go over.
Yes.
There's going to be, it's going to be elevated.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. It's going to look quite different than it does today.
I can't even, I mean, now now I can imagine because you've just explained it, but I hadn't thought of it like that. Now okay, you've got a schedule, you've got a cost, and I mean, how are you bringing this project in? What is the schedule? When will we see this undercrossing?
So fairly exciting with regards to the timing of recording this interview with you. Just 2 days ago, Wednesday, we officially started construction with tree removal and tree limbing. So if you drive on 101 north or south through that location, and notice the landscape looks a little bit different. So we started tree removal and tree trimming for that project. The project is targeted to take 3 construction seasons. So we'll be in construction all of 2023, 2024, and plan to be completed by the end of 2025.
And what is a construction season? I imagine the summer, but what is the length of the season?
Yeah, I would say, on the North Coast, a construction season typically, classically would be, weather permitting as we start to get some drier weather, and then prior to when we start getting our weather, toward the tail end of the year in the winter. So I would expect our work to occur late spring, early summer, starting this year, and then run through a bulk of the season. And we traditionally will work in the winter unless certain projects we might have where we're working, above a creek. For instance, we just replaced Jacoby Creek Bridge maybe about a mile or so north of Indianola. We replaced that bridge. I'm not sure if you saw any of the coverage on that, where we actually built the bridge in the median, picked it up, and moved it into place overnight.
Wow.
But for instance, that project, working over a creek, we were limited with construction activities over the creek between June 15th and October 15th. So that classified a construction season for that project.
Was that an environmental concern?
That was an environmental, a permitting condition.
And how much do environmental permitting conditions and working, to have less of an impact, how much does that affect the projects that you have at Caltrans?
It can affect them a lot. I think that, sometimes the mindset in the community sometimes can be that our environmental, I don't want to call them constraints, but just our environmental considerations for a project, because that's built into the core of our mission at Caltrans, is to respect that our projects respect the environment. And so, we have one environment we all have to live with. We want to make it last. We want it to flourish. And so we want to build projects that, are sustainable, respect the environment. And so while I understand it can be frustrating sometimes that projects can take maybe a little bit longer time to develop and build because of some of those constraints, but I think at the end of the day, we're just trying to be good stewards to the environment and ensure that we're leaving things in a good place and not doing damage.
Do you have environmentalists and scientists on the payroll at Caltrans?
We have about every single specialty you can think of to initiate, deliver, construct a project. We have them all at Caltrans. So from environmental planners, biologists, archaeologists, engineers, right-of-way agents that go deal with right-of-way acquisition and getting temporary construction easements, geotechnical engineers that deal with soils and all the subsurface elements, structural engineers that are designing our bridges, in terms of all the staff and people that work on the programming side with regards to funding, that's really looking at like project delivery. And then we have other segments of that within the department, such as maintenance. And you might see a lot of our maintenance staff out on the roadways maintaining our roadways that are in operation. We've got quite a good cross section of.
And every district in the state has all of these people, or do they have access to these people at least?
Yeah. So in District 1, we have all of those people sitting here, or what's called our North Region. And our north region actually starts to get a little more complicated, but starts wrapping in District 2 and District 3. District 2 is headquartered out of Reading. District 3 is headquartered out of Sacramento. And so there is some staff sharing that occurs within that region for projects in any of those regions. But for the most part, a bulk of the staff that are developing projects they're local people that drive and experience the roadways the same as, your audience does and I do, and so we all have an interest in having a good transportation network that's safe and is going to get us to our destination.
Well, let's talk about other safe networks. I read on the website about, do they call it bimodal transportation? Was that
multimodal, maybe?
Multimodal.
Okay, yeah.
So with bicycles and whatnot. What are the plans for South Broadway and in Eureka? I saw that you were thinking about bike lanes that would go there and people could have a safer route.
Yeah. So I think historically our projects have been very focused on vehicle throughput with a kind of a one focus on vehicles and motorized transportation. And there's a large culture shift in the department as a whole statewide right now to really look at multimodal active transportation. How can we support those modes of transportation better on our facilities? And if you really look at Broadway as a whole, it's not designed very well right now to provide for bikes, peds, transit use.
Peds or pedestrians?
Pedestrians,
okay.
sorry, yeah, pedestrians.
That's okay.
Someone skateboarding or, what we would classify as active transportation, not someone in a vehicle.
Skateboarders are active transportation?
I saw that on our website and we mentioned skating, so, it popped in my head.
Okay, that's great.
But, our disabled community, like we've got a lot of different users. And so really at the forefront of how we develop projects now is considering all the uses and being sure that our designs incorporate those uses to be sure that we're making it useful for them and that we're engaging those users as well. There's a lot of groups and organizations locally that, one for instance that we work a lot with, the Coalition for Responsible Transportation, they're very focused on these multimodal enhancements to the corridors to increase safety. And so some of the things on the South Broadway Complete Streets project that we're looking at making are what's called a Class 4 bikeway, that will have a buffer. So if you think about the lanes of traffic, 2 on Broadway, you've got the outside lane that we call the number 2 lane. The inside lane is the number 1 lane. But that outside lane having a 3-foot buffer that would be striped out, no one would be really permitted to be traveling in that area. And then some type of a physical barrier that would be in that 3-foot buffer. And for this project, it'll be a flexible bollard. And then on the
what is a bollard?
A bollard, if you've seen them, we call them also channelizers, just kind of a thin cylindrical thing that's mounted to the roadway that's flexible, but nonetheless provides a visual barrier to vehicles that signifies that they shouldn't. They're not going to want to hit that, even though it's not going to cause extreme damage to their vehicle.
And you're saying that the bike lane would actually be in the
center? You'll have the travel lane, you'll have this buffer area with these channelizers in them, and then on the opposite side of that, you would have the bike lane. So that just provides separation between the travel lane and the bicycle lane, but also a physical barrier that brings more awareness to that feature that's there for vehicles. And it provides a level of comfort as well for bikes. That's one big element of that, and that's planning to happen throughout the South Broadway segment, all the way from the Herrick Avenue overcrossing. And see, there you go, overcrossing. Right. Herrick is.
We used to call them overpasses, right?
Yeah, but I should quiz you on this. Herrick's the local street. Herrick Avenue is the local street.
Oh, so Herrick goes over 101.
So it's always respect to the highway. So that's an overcrossing because the local street goes over the highway.
And then when you raise at Indianola is going to go under the highway.
Right. So we call it an undercrossing. So
a
little Highway 101 education there.
There, right on.
No pun intended with Highway 101 that goes through our area. But another component.
Oh, Are these like Caltrans jokes?
No, they're not. They're just made up right now.
You just did that on the spot?
I did.
I'm glad that we got that on camera.
Let's see here, also with Broadway. So that Class 4 bikeway will go from Herrick Avenue all the way through to the South Bayshore Mall entrance. So through that whole segment, we'll have these Class 4 bikeways. Also at driveways, we'll have special markings that will be right in front of all the driveways that they're green, kind of a striped crossing that'll show vehicles that there are bikes crossing there, just to bring more awareness to the users that are going to be using that real estate in the highway.
Will that go all the way through town?
So at all the driveways, we'll be doing these special markings. So as people are leaving or entering a property, there's a special green striped marking that just signifies this is a bike lane here. Watch out for bikes.
And the bullards, will they be as soon as you cross over into town?
Yeah.
From going north to south?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then will 5th Street have it as well?
Fifth Street will not have that. So this project ends at the South Bayshore Mall entrance. We do have other projects that we're also studying and developing that are kind of a continuation of these improvements. Also to bring more multimodal facilities improvements throughout the Broadway kind of 101 corridor through Eureka.
Well, let's ask another multimodal question. The plans for the bike trail that's going to go, you can go all the way from, the Hammond Trail all the way south of Eureka. That's yet to be completed, but is Caltrans involved in that, and how does that trail hook up and get folks into Eureka?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of partnering with multiple agencies regarding, I think, what's called the Humboldt Bay Trail.
Humboldt Bay Trail, there you go.
City of Arcata, I think, was the first one to complete a trail in the recent past here, which we called Bay Trail North, on kind of the north part of the Eureka Arcata corridor. They constructed that and it stopped. And then the city of Eureka built another segment coming from the south to the north up to the Eureka Slough over there by the Target. Mm-hmm. And so now there's this middle segment that's not completed. Humboldt County, that's their segment. It's called Bay Trail South. I believe they just had recent approval by the Board of Supervisors to go ahead and move towards advertisement of that project for construction.
Let me ask a question. So Humboldt County has a responsibility of planning this, but wouldn't they enlist Caltrans to help with that in some way?
Yep, and that was actually part of a coastal development permit condition that we had as part of the Indianola undercrossing project and without getting into too much detail, but basically to partner with Humboldt County on the development and delivery of that. And so Caltrans has made financial contributions to that trail, I think to the tune of about $1.25 million in just capital financial contribution to assist with construction. In addition, going back to what I talk about respecting the environment, sometimes our projects unfortunately have to have environmental impacts, but with that comes mitigation that we have to go in and do to mitigate for those impacts. So as part of the Eureka Arcata corridor projects, which the Indianola undercrossing project is one of them and the final one to be completed, there was a number of wetlands that were impacted and will be impacted with the Indianola project. So we're doing a large off-site mitigation project to construct and improve environmental habitat. And with that, we partnered with Humboldt County to do, I think, nearly 40% of the mitigation we're doing that was part of the Indianola project. We increased that about 40% to perform the mitigation for the Bay Trail project. So that's in those two veins is how we've partnered with them to help deliver and make that project a success.
A last question, just kind of a amendment to that. How do we get across the slough from the Bay Trail north to the middle section of the Bay Trail, across the slough and into Target, or the bridges, the railroad bridges that are there. Are Caltrans going to work on those?
Yeah, so in the interim, Humboldt County will have the trail go over the old railroad trestle that exists there today. We do have a project currently in development to replace both of the Eureka Slough bridges there by Target, and part of that project will include a separated bike and ped path on both sides, both north and southbound. And with that project, we'll actually connect to the Bay Trail on the, north side of the slough before it crosses over the old railroad trestle for the interim solution. So once those two bridges are replaced, which right now we're targeting the year 2029 to begin construction of those bridges, the trail, part of that project would be to route the trail up onto the bridges, as well as including connections to the trail kind of at all quadrants of the structure. So no matter if you're going northbound, southbound, you're on the trail, you're off the trail, being able to access kind of all directions from the bridge is something that is going to be a part of that project.
Wow. And then in the meantime, for the audience to hear, in the meantime, the railroad trestle bridge would be used prior to 2029.
Correct. And in terms of its use, if it may still be an option into the future post Eureka Slough Bridges replacement, it's kind of undetermined.
Okay.
It'll be built to be able to do that. I could see maybe there's a possibility it could just remain, but we'll see.
Wow. Unbelievable amount of information. It's all the time we have today. I know we're going to have you back. I'd like to thank my guest, Jeff Pimentel, for his expertise and being here today. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Community Voices.
Thanks for joining us on Community Voices. If you represent a nonprofit that is interested in being a guest on Community Voices, email info@accesshumboldt.net. Access Humboldt, local voices through community media.